We're back to the Total Education Celebrity Show, powered by the Insightful Player Series. You can go to insightfulplayer.com to find out more information on Chrissy Carew and the wonderful programs that she does. She partners with NFL players that are the most amazing people in the world that are giving back to the community, especially children. And they also perform school assemblies. So if you go to insightfulplayer.com, you can purchase Chrissy's book and learn more about her. And I want to welcome to the program my co-host, Jarrett. And Jarrett, anytime we have an insightful player, we know we're going to have a great conversation.
We have all the time, and each one of these players brings so much to our listeners, to us and our listeners, about what they're passionate about and what they've done outside of their sporting career.
And I want to welcome the program. Insightful player, NFL veteran, played for many different teams, and also a star at Penn State. So our local flagship station, if they're Penn State alum, remember him very well. Anthony Adams. Anthony, thanks for calling.
No problem. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. You know, it's getting close to Christmas and New Year's, so, you know, it's the best time of the year for sure. I enjoy the holidays and especially the whole part of giving back. So excited to talk to you and talk about your story for sure and different times. Growing up in Detroit, was it a challenging life living in Detroit, especially as a child?
No question. No question. There was a lot of violence going on, a lot of shootings and a lot of drugs, you know, around my neighborhood and things like that. But my mom did a great job in sheltering me away from that and keeping me active and enrolling me in different programs. So, you know, hats off to my mom for being a single mom in Detroit and growing a young boy up to become a young man. So hats off to my mom.
Well, definitely hats off to your mom. And Jarrett, that's the thing we hear about a lot of the insightful players. Family has been that key component for where they go, for sure, Jarrett.
Oh, well, you know, this is how our show started 4 years ago, was really talking about the important role, the critical role that parents, the adults, and young people's lives play with children and help them grow up into the adults we want them to be.
That's right. That's right. The Bible says, train a child up in the way he should go, and he will not depart far from thee. So I'm real instrumental in my kids' lives, taking them to school. This year was the first year that I was able to do all of the Father's Day activities and things like that, because I will always have OTAs or a training camp or something like that. So this year has been pretty great for me as far as spending a lot of time with my kids. So.
Well, absolutely. And that's the fun thing of myself being an entrepreneur, Anthony, is before when I was a school teacher, I couldn't spend as much time with my kids. But being able to have the flexibility, I get to see them all the time. And it's just something that just, it's fantastic. And it really makes you want to wake up each day when you get to be with your kids, for sure.
Yeah. It's, you can't really explain it. It's a great thing to be a part of their lives and see them grow and see them accomplish and overcome a lot of different things, like being scared of the dark or riding their bike, tying their shoes. You know, it's great to see them overcome a lot of the things that they're usually scared of.
So we talked about your mom, that your mom raised you alone. Your father, when you were just 4 years old, went to prison. So was that difficult not to have that father figure in a way growing up?
Well, it could have been if my mom was bashing him and stuff like that, and just building up a reason for me to have some type of hatred towards my dad. But she did a good job in telling me all the positive things that my dad did, and he made a mistake, and he paid for it and went to jail, and now he's out, and I don't have any animosity towards him or anything. He comes up all the time and spend some time with his grandkids and stuff like that. Our relationship is great, and I don't hold any grudges against him because I feel like he paid his price already. So it wouldn't do any good if he came home from prison and then I'm just like, oh man, you wasn't a good dad and blah blah blah. You know, that would tear him to pieces. So instead, you know, I just show him a lot of love because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him.
And that's so great, your forgiveness, Anthony. You have to be definitely commended for forgiving your father for what he did and how he wasn't there for him. And, Jarrett, that's the other great thing about these players. They truly are able to forgive others. And that's so key, Jarrett, isn't it?
Well, you know, and here's what I'm hearing right now from Anthony is the role model for him there was his own mother. You know, that there's adversity, and she demonstrated, you know, in a realistic way, you know, showing him every day, you know, we deal with the adversity that we have. You know, we can be bitter, or we could be angry, or we can just approach this as this is an obstacle that we overcome, and you know how important that is to have an adult model that for a young child. And I just want to ask Anthony, you know, what are some other things that you saw your mother do, your mom do, to really show that we're not going to let this kind of challenge block your ability to move forward?
Well, she would take me out of my environment sometimes and take me to places where a lot of kids were struggling, because I would be like, you know, hey, I don't like the neighborhood that we live in or whatever. She would take me to some real, like, neighborhoods where they were really struggling. And then I would be like, wow, you know, I don't understand why that, you know, I would give you so much grief by saying that, oh, look at the house we live in, look at my clothes or whatever. And so she would always try to find different lessons for me to learn. And she would always put me in different type of programs. I felt like I went to school all year round because I would be in all types of summer school and doing all types of projects and stuff like that. And I'm just like, Mom, goodness, like, can I, you know, go outside and play tag or something? Jeez. But she was great. You know, I learned to appreciate it, you know, as I got older, because I started to realize that she was doing all this stuff by herself and trying to work odd jobs and stuff like that, still provide and still buy me the newest Jordans and stuff like that. So, you know, hats off to my mom once again.
Most definitely. So once you know you're a good football player, you get accepted to Penn State, and this is something again for our listeners out there. Again, I had Bill Prado, who's the on my author show, and he wrote about the resurgence of Penn State after the whole Sandusky thing. Going and playing for the legendary coach Joe Paterno, I want you to talk about how you benefited from this and that what kind of person Joe was, because I think that he has been really slighted in so many ways based on allegations, different things. And I know you want to speak out. Now you have this platform to do it. So tell us about Joe.
Well, the one thing that I respected about Coach Paterno was the fact that he wanted to build you up as a man first. Like he could care less about football. When you first got there, he wants to know how your grades are. You know, how's your behavior and all of those types of things. He teaches you all these life lessons, and he calls it the grand experiment, success with honor. It's one thing to be successful, but can you do it by being honored? Can you honor your classroom? Can you honor the way that you present yourself? Can you honor yourself by being punctual? So he had all of these life lessons that he would teach us before we even learned to play. So, for instance, if we had to be somewhere by 8 o'clock, to him, that means you have to be there by 7:44. If you're there at 7:45, then you're considered late. Like, we call that Joe Pot time. So when people say, hey, we got an 8 o'clock meeting, then you know you have to be there by 7:44. If you're there at 7:45.00, then you're late.
And this is I'm sorry, Anthony, I interrupted you, but this seems so simple. But I talked to my own son about this, and when we're offering suggestions to parents and advising parents, I talk about this, the commitment of punctuality. It seems so simple, but by being there on time and being where you're supposed to be even early, it shows a commitment, but it shows respect to the person or the group that you are there to be with.
Exactly. And that's some things that, you never really grasp at 17 or 18 years old, but he'll break it down for you, especially if you're one of those guys who's there late all the time. So his whole thing was, if it's 120 guys on the team, including the walk-ons and everything, if you, to a young kid, you're like, hey, man, I was only a minute late, cut this slack. But to Coach Paterno, it's like, no, you're 120 minutes late because you took a minute out of 120 people's time. So when he breaks that down to you, you're like, man, I got to get my stuff together. So he has academic advisors that would have people there at your class to see if you were late to class, to see if you were studying, to see what you ate at breakfast. I mean, he was on top of it. He wants you to get breakfast in the morning. He said that's the most important meal of the day. And you're looking like, man, come on. Can we play football?
and that's,
this guy,
yeah.
He had all types of sayings, like a man with no watch doesn't respect time. People fumble because of lack of concentration and lack of courage. So he had all these sayings that he would say, and it would just stick with you all the time. Every time he see me when I came back to work out with the team, he'd always be like, hey, save your money, kid. Hey, kid, how's your mom doing? How's your family? He would never talk football with me, not one time, ever.
And that was a father figure, for sure, and to teach you discipline. And at first, you're probably like, whoa. Growing up in Detroit, your mom was strict, but not as much probably all of the people you grew up with and stuff like that, and saying, wow, this is football. What is he involved in all these other things, right?
Yeah. She was like, my son is really becoming a man. Like, I'd be coming home and I'd be cleaning up and stuff like that. She's like, wow, I guess I did make a right choice that you're going to Penn State.
Well, I'm glad you're...
Yeah, but it was cool because all of the assistant coaches, they kind of followed suit. You couldn't wear hats in the building. You couldn't have chin hair. Like you had to cut your chin hair, all that type of stuff. You had to have your shirt tucked in, no excessive celebrations and all that type of stuff. Like, he didn't play all that stuff, or he wasn't going to play, or he was going to take his scholarship.
Wow. And that's
great. In other words, act like you've made that play before. Act like it is
exactly.
You made that.
If I had $1 for every time he said that, I'd be a billionaire.
Well, we're talking Anthony Adams, insightful player, Chicago Bear, 49er, and much, much more. But for our listeners on our flagship station, Penn State, that's what a lot of times when we talk about it, Anthony, it's a surprise. When we get back, I'll ask that question. If you have gone to one of those major universities that are traditions with the most Hall of Fame coaches that you played under, that is going to end up being what people will call you more than the NFL, which is amazing. And that's the Notre Dames, the Alabamas, the Penn States. I hate saying that because I am a Pitt fan. When we get back with more with Anthony Adams, you're listening to the Total Education Celebrity Show, powered by the Insightful Player Series. Go to insightfulplayer.com, and we'll be back in just a moment. We're back to the Total Education Celebrity Show and the Total Education Network. Again, TotalTutor.net for more information. Twitter, Total Tutor, Neil S. Haley. Facebook, the Insightful Player Series. Go to insightfulplayer.com to find out more information on Chrissy Carew and her great players. And I'm with Jarrett, my co-host. And Jarrett, I know you have a question for Anthony, not regarding Penn State right now, based on your research.
I don't. And our listeners know that I'm the one that always asks the really tough questions, the hard-to-answer questions. And I would only answer this. I'd only ask Anthony this question because I know his wonderful sense of humor. But, Anthony, I'm going to ask you, tell us, what is the Mama's Boy Award that you won at Martin Luther King High School back in Detroit?
Well, our categories were very specific. We had, class clown, class most likely to succeed, and then we had class mama's boy. And that's what I won. My mom would always be at the games. She would always be head of the booster club and all that type of stuff. And my mom really didn't need a megaphone at the games. I will say that. So it was everybody knew who she was, and I ended up running, and it was no competition.
So it's an award of honor, actually. I mean, you were proud of that, and
exactly.
Thank you for that. Thank you for answering the really tough questions.
Oh, Jarrett, you asked the hardest questions in the world. You check me out and hear me ask these tough questions, and you ask the toughest. All right, so back to Paterno. I think that ultimately when you talk about discipline, and this is one thing that the program brought to take in his whole time at Penn State, that you were able to really gather a lot of that for your success in the NFL and off the field is the discipline. So you didn't get caught up in a lot of the bad things that could have happened to you. You see lots of pro athletes and college athletes throw their whole lives away because they have freedom, right, Anthony? In a lot of ways, Joe allowed you to have freedom, but had that discipline there to make sure it didn't go too far.
Yeah, he was he was funny, man. Like he had you so tired that you wouldn't even think about doing anything. And he had you so spooked that you would take your scholarship. He would take your scholarship, but he wouldn't let you play. So, you always, made sure that everything was on the up and up with Coach Paterno. And we would sit in alphabetical order. So I'm in the front, of course. And so I would just be going over, all these things in my head because he'd be right there at the podium. And I'm just like, man, I know he's going to talk about me being late to class. I know he's going to talk about that C I got on my final. And so I used to just be sitting there just sweating bullets. Oh, man, I hope he doesn't look at me. I try not to make eye contact with him. But he definitely was a man who was no nonsense, and he taught a lot of players how to be men. And, I just respect him so much.
Wow. And that speaks a lot for people. And Anthony, I'm glad you said that because, again, a lot of people have turned their backs on Paterno. I don't know how many players have, but many fans have. And many people that want to bash him based on what happened with Sandusky and everything. And for you to have the courage to come out still and say this, because a lot of people...
I can't do it. This is a man who came to Detroit, Michigan, who came to my high school, who went and met my pastor, who went and met my trainer, where I worked out at, and came into my house and said, this is what we want to do with Anthony. We want to get him graduated first, and we want to teach him football. How do you not respect a man who's going to give you a scholarship to play football, but is more dedicated to you to graduate?
Yes. Yes, and that's what we need. We need to put student athlete, not athlete comes first in college football. The student comes first. And Jarrett, that's what I always preach. I said, we need to have student athletes in college, not athletes.
Did you guys read the quote that Urban Meyer said about Coach Paterno?
No, I did not. Tell us about that. Share with us.
So he's the greatest college football coach in the history of college football. That's his direct quote. And, I thank Urban Meyer for saying that.
Well, yeah, especially when many people would put him right up there as the greatest, Urban Meyer is the greatest college coach. For someone like him to say what I've accomplished is small compared to what Coach Paterno has done. I mean, that is significant.
Yeah, very, very. So I commend Urban Meyer for that.
What's amazing, Anthony, is you've talked about the father figure in your life in college, Joe Paterno, and how he taught you many things that You didn't understand about being on time. You didn't understand about how to treat others and do all these different things. And you had a successful NFL career. But I think one of the honors you received, because we could talk to you for three different segments for 30 minutes each. But if we want to catch the major points of your career and your life, receiving the Ed Block Courage Award must have been a tremendous honor. Explain that award and how it felt to be given that.
Well, yeah, it came at an awesome time. Well, it wasn't so awesome things that were going on in my life, which got me nominated. The Ed Block Courage Award is an award that your peers vote upon a guy on your team who shows a lot of courage. So, for instance, I know a guy by the name of Tony Parrish who won the award. He played with I think he had some type of partially torn tricep or something like that. So he played the whole year with the cast on his arm or whatever. And in my case, my aunt died in preseason. We had preseason going on and training camp and all of that stuff. And my aunt died, and so I flew back home to be there for the funeral on a Friday, and we had a game on Saturday. So when I flew back home to go and bury my aunt, on the way to pick my granddad up, my granddad had a heart attack and died.
Oh, my gosh.
So I had to fly back Saturday to play a game. I guess we played against San Diego or something like that. So I flew out to San Diego, played in the game, and then came back. And then I had to do the same thing the next week. So I had to fly back on Friday to bury my granddad and then play in the game on Saturday. So the guys recognized what I went through, and they voted me for the Ed Block Courage Award.
But also, Anthony, it's not just that. Also, they look at your whole resume. Am I correct? Yeah, meaning the kind of player you were in your career. Meaning the award is not just for courage, but also showing a lot of those characteristics as well. Correct? Identifying as you're a sportsman, your sportsmanship, and you're also inspiring in ways. So listen to Anthony. I talk about the award and because of Coach Joe Pa and what he has been able to instill in Anthony. And Anthony shows the humbleness of the reason he received the award when there's a lot more to this, Jarrett. You got to be inspiring. You got to be a sportsman, have great sportsmanship. And those are two characteristics I guarantee that Coach Paterno, Jarrett, taught Anthony.
Yeah, well, we've heard that. We've heard Anthony mention the critical role that positive adults made in his life, and how he's carrying on that same legacy.
Yeah, he used to make us wear suits at away games, and I was like, man, this is so crazy, man. Like, we already got to shave our chin hair and be so punctual all the time. Now we got to put on a suit for away games. And you look at other teams, they're wearing their windbreakers and stuff like that. I'm like, man, how come we can't just be like this other team and just wear some track suits or whatever on the bus or, on the plane? So, but sure enough, I get to the NFL, and they're like, hey, you guys, we have to wear suits at away games. And I'm like, oh, my God, I can't get rid of this guy.
And you were Bob. You said, I've got my suit ready. You're just going to wear that same one that you've been wearing the previous 4 years.
What coach in the NFL had you wear a suit for away games? Which coach?
It was Coach Erickson and Dennis Erickson and Coach Mike Nolan and Coach Lovie Smith for sure.
So what did you think of playing under Lovie Smith? Did you enjoy playing your days with Chicago?
Yeah, it was great. He was great. He didn't. He wasn't going to tell you any lies or anything like that. He was going to be straight up with you. He wasn't a big yeller. And, he would sit in the meetings with us and, ask us the tough questions that Jared asked. And He was great, man. Definitely a player's coach.
And it must have been hard finally when you had to retire, right? Especially with your career in football and it being such an important part of your life. To make that decision to retire is difficult, isn't it?
Yeah. I had 1 year left of my contract with the Bears, and I ended up getting released I was at Disney World with my kids. So I was at the happiest place on earth to receive the saddest news that I ever received before. It was difficult to deal with, knowing that I wouldn't be in the locker room with the fellas, and I wouldn't, get down in the stands and take on the double team one more time. So, but now it's like when you're playing the game, you dread practice, you dread training camp, you dread taking on all the double teams. But when it's taken away from you, like you would do anything to line back up again, even if it's practice, even if it's training camp, or even if the double team is coming. But I knew I didn't want to be selfish and keep trying to make a team and stuff like that. I would get like a bunch of 1 year contracts, and I have to go above and beyond to make sure the coaches recognize me. And so I just didn't want to spread myself too thin and, just be holding on to hope and then it wouldn't happen. So instead of being that selfish, I just said, hey, I'm going time.
Yeah. And that's the hard thing, but then there's life after football, Jarrett. And I know that Anthony's going to have some great stories in a couple years about life after football because of what his mom and also his family and Joe Paterno were able to instill in him, Jarrett. Don't you agree?
I certainly think so. And, in fact, I would ask Anthony right now, I mean, the football season is grinding down to an end. What are some of the things that Anthony's really doing currently? I know he's helping with parenting his kids. What else, Anthony, are some of the things that you're doing?
Well, right now I have a TV show through the Bears called Inside the Bears. Comes on Fox out here locally, Channel 32. Comes on the whole weekend. Fridays at 9:30, Saturday at 6, and Sundays at 11:05 at night. So I'm doing good. I'm doing a little bit of ESPN radio, covering the Bears, pre-game, post-game, stuff like that. So I'm just trying to keep busy.
Well, that's keeping busy for sure, staying in the football. And so would you say the Bears are your team of the three teams you played for? If I'm correct, that's the team that, you retired as, and that's the team you'll kind of bring yourself as Chicago Bear Anthony Adams, would you say?
Pretty much. I definitely thank the 49ers for drafting me. They'll always have a spot in my heart. But once I came here, I bought my first house here. My kids were born here. And so it's just been a lot of great memories here.
Well, that's great. And again, another tradition. Penn State, Chicago Bears. Another unbelievable tradition. So, Anthony, I know that you're doing a little bit of charity work. Mention that and also where we can find information on you.
Well, everybody could follow me on Twitter at SpiceAdams.com. That's basically everything. I'm on Spice Adams at everything, Instagram, Vine, and I also have a website, SpiceAdams.com. And I did for a year. I donated whatever proceeds I made for T-shirts on my website. I gave it to PCAR, Pennsylvania Coalition Against Rape. And so I don't have my own foundation, but I help everyone out with their foundations. Some of my teammates are just recently I helped raise money for the victims of the tornadoes that hit down here in Illinois. It was a bad one. I think it was maybe 16 tornadoes that hit Illinois and northwest Indiana.
Wow.
So myself and actually Robbie Gold has a foundation called Golden Touch. And he got a bunch of the players together and alumni. And we went down to Coal City. Coal City was one of the cities that got hit the worst. And so we went down there and teamed up with the Red Cross and passed out blankets with food and rakes and stuff like that to help people get back on their feet. So I don't have a foundation of my own, but I always help everybody else out.
And lastly, Coach Carew will get mad if I don't ask this question. What does it mean to be an insightful player? Being named an insightful player.
Well, it's great because people get a chance to see us outside of our helmets. They get to see what type of people we really are, what type of fathers we are, what type of sons we are, what type of husbands we are. And people get a chance to know our story, know our upbringing, know what makes us tick, know what makes us laugh. So it's a great thing to be a part of, and I'm happy that I can align with Christy and everything that she's doing. She's great. And, it's a great team. It's a great thing to be a part of.
Absolutely. And Anthony, I'll say go Bears, but I don't know if I'll say go go Penn State, especially being a Pitt guy. But I really appreciate you coming by and enjoyed the conversation. And Jarrett, another great, insightful player. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And Anthony is he's a natural for TV and radio. He's such a funny guy. And if we had more time, I would ask the next very difficult question is, why the spice?
Oh, you can answer that, Anthony.
I don't know if we got enough time. I don't know if we got enough time for that.
I don't think we do today. I think we'll need to come back.
That's a long story right there.
That's a
long story.
I guess we got to tweet him out to ask him that question. But thanks, Anthony, for taking the time, and best of luck to you.
How about those pillars?
Oh, no, that's not, that was not nice, Anthony. All right, take care, guys. See you later. All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
You're listening to Told Education Celebrity Show on the Told Education Network, and we'll be back in just a moment.